Hi, it's Steve and Joe from Fresh Agenda. And Steve, this week we've got a bit of an update from our Global Dairy Directions analysis that went out to subscribers last week.
Mm-hmm.
And also a bit of an overview of this week's GDT.
Yeah, which was pretty sleepy.
Yeah, let's jump into it.
So we've, as I said, beginning of the week, we issued an outlook for the end of August. So just thought we'd capture here the big issues, like the biggest issues that matter the most, and which way our fundamentals, not a price forecast, which way they're pointing.
Mm-hmm.
So skim milk powder, look, generally we're a bit bullish, not overtly, it's going to surge away, but we see a tighter situation in Europe with their balance sheet. Demand's still fairly positive, and there's a bit of capacity on the demand side, particularly in developing Asia, and they're going to stay price sensitive. They're going to take advantage of opportunities. We saw that big time with the buying of product at low prices.
Mm-hmm.
There are some risks. I mean, the US prices are still sensitive to what Mexico is doing.
Totally.
But
that's a very difficult situation economically.
And I guess the durability of that New Zealand premium, which is still there.
Yes, which we'll come back to in the GDT results.
Fats mostly sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to call that going up? Have we found the bottom? We certainly see that demand is a weakness, and our fundamental lines are still going sideways.
Yeah.
On this basis. So strong retail demand, just keeping it together in Europe. Cheese mixed.
It's interesting cheese, isn't it? Always.
Tasty too. The EU's keeping fairly balanced. The US, we're going to see slide with more coming to market, and more product, more milk, more cheese production.
More capacity coming on.
Yeah. And in our region, probably going sideways until we see some later stage, I guess, will eventually lift with the others, but in the short term, it's probably going to stay sideways. Whole milk powder, probably drifting.
Yeah.
There's improving New Zealand milk supply, more milk coming out of South America, more product down there. We still see a more price-sensitive demand side rather. But that import advantage in China is still meaningful.
Which we'll come to later. And then whey.
Overhung by a weak, WPC market in the US, which is, I guess, getting more commodities, whey solids into the mainstream. But cheese output is also growing. So the US was seeing flat, but other regions should lift on stronger demand.
Sure.
So that's a wrap. GDT 267. So.
In this context, we had a little weakening of the price index, but not, it's certainly not a crash. But as you characterise as sleepy. Yeah,
well, the changes weren't great, weren't huge. I mean, there's more down bars than up bars there, as it tends to pull the index down. And it's being heavily weighted to whole milk powder. That was the weakest spot.
Obviously, again, more on offer, more product on offer. That seasonal increase. So, you'd expect a bit of weakness in whole milk powder in particular.
So I guess if you look at that, it's probably not a bad result.
Yeah.
Because New Zealand regular C2 just lost $40.
Yeah.
A lot more volume on there. So that's, probably positive. So I think the interesting thing, there'd be a bit of nervous anxiety across the ditch. The value of that result, when you take it back at spot values and where the New Zealand dollar's at, based on their formula mix of product in their milk prices, it lost 35 cents. 32 cents of that was the dollar rising. So NZ dollar's doing what our dollar's doing, and
it's really US dollar weakness. Yeah. So that's 32 of that 35 cent gap. And Fonterra just reaffirmed their payout guidance, so that hasn't changed.
And what we show there on the midpoint is the midpoint of that range.
Yeah.
So that's at 640. So that'll be interesting to watch. Futures are still high, much higher than that in terms of milk prices. So.
But currency's going to play a real part, isn't it?
It is. Skim milk powder firmer. The best part of the result, I think. Demand was a little better than average. We show that on that scatter graph there that shows we were a little better.
Scatter graph?
Yeah, I've just named it that. It's probably not what it's called. So that's a firm result following the lead of, as we just talked, European, US prices are firmer, markets are a little tighter and more optimistic. And this follows. New Zealand's premium was a little bit stronger this time.
Yeah.
US product came back to the market, didn't do so well. In terms of whole milk powder, the persistent Chinese buying again a feature.
Yes, but goodness.
As someone said to me this morning, it's almost like a one-horse show, that this is, it's New Zealand to China, and other regions are figuring less in this, and that's keeping it balanced.
Is a one-horse show like a one-trick pony?
Could be, yeah. You could say that. When you look then at the, one of the big drivers, Chinese milk prices are rising quickly.
Yes, so that gap is actually increasing.
Yeah, that gap. So that's a calculation of the theoretical difference between local and imported milk powder. So with that rising price and with the way that recent GDT events have landed, it's pushed that gap a little wider.
Sure. So again, underpinning the likelihood that they'll continue to buy.
Then, if we look at where this puts us, New Zealand's mostly the bargain centre.
Yeah.
Skim milk powder is a very interesting conundrum. We see that rising GDT out further was a bit softer. So, that'll be an interesting development to watch.
Yeah, but as you said, against those futures curves, that looks like a bargain buy out there for those buyers in this event.
Chart of the week, Joe, what have you got?
Well, staying with China, just having a look at China's import volumes for July, and we've got some comparisons, month, etc. Looks reasonably positive out there in July.
Yeah. So that's a signal of a reopening economy.
Yeah.
You'd think. Very strong fats and cheese. And when we dug into the data, that's not exactly at lower prices.
No.
Those prices haven't fallen to generate that trade. That's actually, in fact, prices are higher.
Yeah.
For some of those, butter and AMF trades. Cheese stunning. I mean, we are seeing more opening up, I guess, and that's probably pulled that through. Powder's quiet. Year on year at the low point. Those charts on the right show that where we are, we're just ticking along. But volume's staying together. And the other story is the fact that there's a lot of animal feed demand with the rebuilding of pork, the pork herd and or the pig herd and in that country. So that's pulled through a lot of product again, continuing so.
Yeah, and that's been fairly sustained in the last 3 to 6 months period. So interesting.
It is.
Thank goodness they're continuing to buy.
Yeah, it's holding it together. All right. Well, that's it from us. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.